Have you been a dedicated and passionate spiritual seeker your whole life, but you simply feel overwhelmed with all of the information that is out there, and you need simple, practical steps to implement all this head knowledge and bring it into your internal state so you can actually experience an inner shift into expanded consciousness? If you feel like you are constantly tossed around by your emotions, your life circumstances, and you can never ground in that higher consciousness state, then this video is for you. Today I'm going to share with you the simple 4-step blueprint to connect with and awaken your divine nature once and for all and start living from heart-based consciousness. Hi, I'm Melissa Denise, and I help the passionate and dedicated spiritual aspirant to go from information overload and head knowledge to a practical, guided, step-by-step process to actually experience their own divine nature and all the amazing benefits that go along with that, including heart-based consciousness, flow state consciousness, deep inner peace, divine bliss, and abundance. In previous videos, we've covered the foundational truth of the universe that all is one. Reality is oneness. Truth is oneness. This is what exists. And this foundational reality is what every other spiritual teaching is built upon, including the one that we're going to discuss today. This is Fuzzy Wuzzy. She's causing all the noise today. The root of all unhappiness is the belief in separation. It is an incorrect belief that we are separate from the one. Unhappiness occurs when we think that we need something outside of ourselves to fulfill us within, to make us feel secure, worthy, empowered, abundant, at peace, loved, etc. If we think that we need something in the outer world, the outer physical world, to make us feel okay on the inside, we will be unhappy. We will feel insecure. We will feel lack or limitation or any number of incorrect beliefs. In other words, we will suffer for one simple reason. We cannot control anything that happens in the physical world. We can't control what people do or how situations unfold. So when we attach our inner sense of security and okayness to something that is completely outside of our control, that will most likely not go as we planned or the way that we want it to, we suffer because then we never get the things that we think we need to feel okay. And that's what suffering is. Psychological suffering is a sense of not feeling okay on the inside. This is why Buddhism teaches that all suffering is caused by attachment. Or we could say all suffering is caused by the attachment aversion cycle. If we think that we need our outer environment, the physical world, to change in any way for us to feel okay on the inside, we will suffer every time when our outer environment inevitably does not cooperate with us. In the case of attachment, we will suffer whenever we don't get whatever it is that we are attached to, or whatever we think we need to feel okay on the inside. Okay, I just had to put my cats out because they were making so much noise. And there's a perfect example of an attachment right there. If I was thinking I need these cats to be quiet so that I can have peace, that would be an attachment. If I'm starting to get irritated and upset and frustrated because they're making noise when I'm trying to film, that's an example of an attachment. I have an attachment to them being quiet or an aversion to them making noise. Attachments and aversions always come in pairs. When there's one, you'll find the other. And this is the source of all of our suffering. So an attachment is when we don't get whatever we think we need to make us happy. And an aversion is when we're getting something that we think is stealing our happiness or disrupting our happiness. For instance, I might think I need a new home, a more spacious home, in order for me to feel comfortable and secure inside. An aversion would be I hate this home that I have. I just can't be comfortable here. I don't want it. An attachment would be, I need more supportive relationships to feel like I'm worthy of love. And an aversion would be, I'm tired of dealing with this one specific person that's making me feel unworthy. Because we have no control over our environment or other people, we will continue to suffer until we learn how to work with our own energy and shift our own perception to feel secure, adequate, empowered, abundant, connected, loved, at peace, joyful within ourselves. A quick caveat here, I am not saying that you don't need to have boundaries in unhealthy situations or that you don't have physical or emotional needs in the physical that need to be met. What I am saying is that when we create an attachment to these things in the outer world being a certain way in order for our internal sense of security and okayness, we set ourselves up to suffer. Anytime there is an attachment or an aversion, suffering is inevitable. Because, as we've stated, we ultimately don't have control over how life unfolds. And also, most of the time, the things that we think we need to make us happy, when we get them, we find that they weren't all we thought they were cracked up to be. Why don't the things that we think we need to make us happy actually make us happy? There's a very simple reason for this. Most of the time, it's because the things that we think we need to make us feel okay inside exist in the outer physical world. But our actual experience is internal. We experience the world through our feelings about what unfolds in the physical. For instance, let's say that I am running late to work and I'm in the car running an errand, stressing, trying to get home on time. The facts in the physical world are that I'm running late to work, but what's causing me to suffer is the emotions I attach to that event because of the story I tell myself. If I'm late for work, I won't be able to get everything done in the day that I need to get done. That thought causes emotions of stress and overwhelm, and it's the emotions of stress and overwhelm that are my experience of the situation. I could completely change my experience of the situation by thinking thoughts and rewiring my beliefs to create positive emotions about the situation. In this way, it's our feelings about what's happening that is our actual experience of life. Let's say that I thought that getting a new phone would make me feel happy. But then once I get the phone, I do feel great about it for the first couple of days. That's because I'm attaching a story to this phone. I have a new phone. How exciting. I get to use all these new features. And those thoughts create feelings, which make me feel good for a couple of days, but then the excitement fades. Let's use the example of a video gamer to help us better understand this concept. If you sit down to play a video game, especially if you're a gamer that plays for hours every day, you may find yourself lost in the character, similarly to how readers get pulled into the stories of their books and feel like they are that character living the story in the book. If you're a video gamer playing for hours every day, you may completely zone out of your life and identify super strongly with the character that you're playing. And maybe as you sit there and game, your physical body starts to feel hungry. And just imagine that if you were so identified with the character that you forgot about your physical body and you tried to use your game character to get something to eat. So let's say that you found some food in the video game world and fed it to your video game character and then wondered why your physical body was still hungry. But you're so identified with the character that you're confusing your physical hunger with your video game character. And you're trying to feed yourself through the video game character and not remembering that your body is not actually in the game. It's in the physical world and it needs a completely different kind of food. And the video game food is not actually going into your physical body to satisfy it. It can't because it's in a completely different dimension. This is how it is for us as spirits living in the physical world, except a level up. Just like you as a human might be immersed in a video game world where the video game food can't satisfy your human body. You as a spirit are immersed in a physical world where physical food and items and things cannot satisfy your spirit or your consciousness. Oftentimes, we as humans forget who we are because we're so immersed in the physical story that we're playing out here in the 3D world. Then we feel the hunger, the dissatisfaction of our spirits, and we try to use items in the physical world to satisfy our spirits. But these things, this phone, these clothes, what I'm going to have for lunch later, these things can be used for the care of the physical body and the accomplishment of things in the physical world, but none of these things can be used to satisfy the spirit. They exist on a completely different dimension. This is what attachments and judgments are. I need a bigger house to make me feel more comfortable. I need this coworker to stop being annoying so I can enjoy my day. I need my father to accept me so I can feel good about myself. I need a pay raise so I can feel secure. Why doesn't this work? Because it's like trying to feed video game food to a video game character and thinking that it will satisfy your physical body. Just like that video game food cannot be taken into your physical body, in the same way, physical items, objects, situations, events, anything existing in the physical world cannot be taken into your spirit, into your internal world. You have to learn to get what you need to satisfy yourself spiritually from the world of spirit, the world of consciousness, from the dimension where your true self actually exists. And how do you access your true self? How do you access and awaken your divine nature? Well, like we said, oneness is the underlying truth, the underlying reality of the universe. Oneness, consciousness, spirit, love. All abundance exists within everything, but you don't see it in the outer world until you learn to look beyond and within the physical form. The easiest point of access is to just look within yourself. The only way to satisfy yourself internally is to look to your inner world because that's where your experience is happening. When this phone doesn't make me feel happy, how do I get that happy feeling in here? The simplest possible answer is to say that we have to take responsibility for the fact that our inner security, adequacy, empowerment, happiness, love, abundance, peace, it already exists within me. And I am the only one that can access it and awaken to it and create it within myself. Until a person reaches this point of self-responsibility, nothing will shift because nobody else can do it for you. There are many successful paths that a person can take to alchemize their consciousness. Meditation, hypnosis, therapy, gratitude, subliminals, shadow work, journaling. Different methods work for different people. And I'm a firm believer that if you pick something that works and you stick with it, any one spiritual practice can be a path to full enlightenment if you want it to be. But today I'm going to share with you the path that I teach in my courses. The path of divine union has been the number one goal of my life. I'm not claiming to be enlightened or to have attained divine union. Very few beings who have walked the face of the earth have reached that level. But I have experienced some really powerful shifts along my journey, including from depression to joy, from lack to abundance, from anxiety and overwhelm to peace and flow. And in my courses, what I have done is I've taken the most potent, powerful spiritual practices from various traditions and I've distilled them into a step-by-step, effective, practical blueprint for consciousness transformation. And you can use these steps to go all the way from suffering to heart-based awakening, or you can just pick an individual step that you need to work on that's relevant for you, like going from depression to happiness or from anger to empowerment. I start out by teaching foundational spiritual practices like allowance, self-inquiry, and presence or flow, which are foundational skills for everybody to know to get past the noise of the world and the thoughts and the feelings and connect deeply with the divine core of our being. And then we move into the actual alchemy work of actually transmuting consciousness from suffering to heart-based abundance bliss consciousness. And we do this through working directly with the emotions that are tied to the energy centers of the human body. I'm going to share with you now the exact process that I teach. I've explained in previous videos how the evolution of consciousness rises through the human from the root center to the crown. The Hindu tradition explains how the feminine energy of Shakti is coiled at the base of the spine in the root center, waiting to be awakened to travel up the spine and unite with the masculine cosmic energy of Shiva at the crown. And this process is called a Kundalini awakening. Many people experience it very rapidly and they aren't able to hold that state, so it isn't permanent. But you can also learn to work with your energy intentionally to slowly raise your consciousness through each energy center of the body and ground it in so that you can live from a higher state. Consciousness begins evolving through the root center. The root center is the place where you receive grounding feminine energy from the earth and where you are anchored into the 3D plane. The root center is focused on safety and security in your environment. And so an imbalance in the root center will cause you to feel unsafe, which points to an underlying incorrect belief in vulnerability, which will lead to feelings of fear, anxiety, panic, distrust, worry. When the root center is balanced, you will feel feelings of safety, trust, and surrender naturally. You'll have an underlying belief that the universe is a safe place, that God is good and benevolent, and that life is working out for your favor. A balanced root center has to be attained and grounded in for consciousness to evolve up into the sacral center. All energy centers are accessible to anybody along their path. But when I talk about evolving into a specific energy center, I'm talking about your baseline level of consciousness. Where do you live from in the day-to-day? Someone who's living out of a complete fight and flight, fear-based state. Maybe somebody who's has to fight to survive, almost like an animalistic kill or be killed type of state, is probably grounded into a root center consciousness. And those issues of safety and security have to be dealt with in order for that person to evolve up into sacral center consciousness. The sacral center is about your relationship with yourself. It's like the womb where you nourish yourself. Once your basic survival needs are met and safety is not an issue, consciousness next moves on to issues of self-love and self-worth. The sacral center is where we turn inward to look at ourselves, to nourish ourselves emotionally. And when it is unbalanced, you'll feel unworthy, which points to an underlying incorrect belief in your own inadequacy. And it causes you to feel some variation of the emotion of shame, whether unworthiness, undesirableness, self-hatred, self-loathing, self-pity, overwhelmed, dismissed, not measuring up, not having what it takes. When the sacral center is balanced, you will feel feelings of childlike innocence, worthiness, confidence, deep self-love, and nourishment. You will feel like you are cherished beyond measure and worthy of anything good that life has to offer. And the sacral center, again, has to be balanced in order for consciousness to evolve up into the solar plexus. The solar plexus is all about your sense of self in relationship to other people. It's like your personal sun empowering your social experiences and interactions. It deals primarily with your autonomy in relationships. When the center is imbalanced, you will feel triggered and offended, which points to an underlying belief in your own disempowerment and leads to some variation of the feeling of anger, rage, irritability, out of control, or you may feel suppressed, manipulated, offended, disrespected, unappreciated, like you're being controlled. When the solar plexus is balanced, you will feel empowered within yourself, at ease in your relationships. You won't be easily offended or triggered. You'll feel like you respect and honor yourself enough that other people's actions aren't really about you. And the solar plexus has to be balanced in order for consciousness to fully move up into the heart. The heart is where the magic happens. The heart is where the sense of self that was developed in the lower three energy centers expands to include the other. The heart is where we take a massive leap from separation consciousness into unity consciousness. You begin to not just conceptually understand, but experience that all of creation is part of the great self and that we all share the same sense of I am. When the heart is unbalanced, you feel disconnected, which points to an underlying belief in your own limitation. And it leads to some variation of the feeling of sadness, loss, loneliness, isolation, grief, limitation, poverty, lack. When the heart center is balanced, you experience yourself as at one with anything and everything. You realize that lack is a complete impossibility, that you have access to all abundance within yourself, and you open to have a beautiful giving and receiving state with life. Of course, consciousness can continue to evolve up into the throat center, which is about self-sufficiency and authentic expression, into the third eye, which is about receiving intuitive guidance and unlocking psychic gifts, and further into the crown for God union. But the big evolutionary leap for humanity right now is to fully balance the 3 lower energy centers and move up into the heart. The evolutionary leap that everybody is talking about, the near-death experiencers, the channelers, the between life regressionists, this shift from 3rd density or solar plexus consciousness into 4th density or heart-based consciousness. This is the next evolutionary leap for humanity. If you want to start working on alchemizing your own consciousness in your own life, I'll give you a quick cheat sheet. When you feel any variation of the feeling of fear, it is a root center issue. It means that you feel unsafe in some way, which is caused by an incorrect underlying belief in your own vulnerability. The antidote is trust, which leads to feelings of deep inner security. If you feel any variation of the feeling of shame, it is a sacral center issue. It means that you don't feel enough in some way, which is caused by an incorrect underlying belief in your own inadequacy or unworthiness. The antidote is self-love, which leads to deep inner feelings of adequacy and worthiness. If you feel any variation of the feeling of anger, it is a solar plexus issue. You feel violated in some way, which is caused by an incorrect underlying belief in your own disempowerment. The antidote is forgiveness, which leads to deep feelings of your own empowerment. If you feel any variation of the feeling of sadness, it is a heart center issue. You feel disconnected in some way, which points to an incorrect underlying belief in your own limitation. The antidote is giving and receiving, which leads to deep inner feelings of connection and, as a byproduct, abundance. Let me give one final caveat that I am not trying to victim blame here and say that if you feel anger because someone has violated you, that's because you have an incorrect belief. What I am trying to do is empower you that even if someone has violated you, you can take back your power and you can work with your underlying beliefs and your inner state to empower yourself, regardless of what someone else has done. And while it absolutely is necessary to take steps in the outer world to prevent abuse, prevent violation, the underlying root that causes situations of abuse to occur in the first place is because humanity is living from lower centers of consciousness. So ultimately, the way to heal humanity as a whole is for each of us to do the internal work to raise and evolve our own consciousness so that we can effectively evolve collectively. Having said that, I've created a cheat sheet for you on the 4-step alchemy process here, which you can find in my description or my pinned comment, and you can download for easy access and use. What I've shared today is just scratching the surface. Some of you watching may have questions about, well, how do I use forgiveness to heal my own underlying feelings of disempowerment? Oftentimes when you've been offended, forgiveness is the hardest thing to actually figure out practically. How do I do this? I teach this step-by-step process in my membership. We're actually getting ready to embark upon this 4-step alchemy process from the root to the heart over the next several months in my membership. And I'm going to be giving you every detail step by step of how to work with each one of these energy centers and each one of these emotions. So in just 4 months, you can go from a state of suffering to a state of heart-based abundance consciousness. If that sounds good to you, check the link in the description and in the pinned comment to join. Now go live your most extravagantly loving life, and thank you so much for watching.